All right, you've heard the lady. Recording is in progress. Thank you, coaches, for joining us for the Fall 2023 Unified Tennis preseason coaches meeting. This is the first one that we're doing in this format. We hope that offering this in the beginning of the season gives you some additional insight into what the season is going to be, what tips and tricks we can share with you, some rules, reminders, uniform stuff, the usual kind of stuff that we tend to get you through your district rep meetings in the beginning of the season and then in the pre-competition webinar at the end of the season. But we just want to get it to you on the front end as well, just to give you some reminders. Here's the game plan for tonight. We will go over the typical forms and registration, some of the admin stuff, and then the coaching stuff that you're actually here for. The tennis crew is the same crew as usual. Katie Turner's the Unified Tennis Chair. Mark Sunkel is handling skills for the most part for us. But again, Mark's been around forever. He can help you with general tennis stuff as well. But if you have skills questions, Mark has been running them at states for us for a long time. He runs them at Frederick County's tournament. Please reach out to Mark. He's got good information, good insight on that as well. And you can always reach out to Katie or myself, skills, match play, whatever it may be. Here's me and my adventure cat. If you don't have my contact info, it'll come with the email that I send to all the coaches and district reps. But again, Zach Centron, I'm here, and we're going to have a good season. I hope to see you all throughout the season. Just so you know, these are the contacts for district reps. For the most part, you're contacting your district rep, but this is who they communicate with in different districts, so on and so forth. We are still looking to find a district rep for the Upper Shore area, which is Caroline, Kent, Queens Anne, Talbot County, the upper part of the shore there. And when we do have a district rep, we will let you know. Additionally, we do have a few new district reps in a few new places. Cecil County, Jan Vaughn is taking over for Sabrina. We're excited about that. Sabrina went to Baltimore County Public Schools. Greta Harrison is taking over for Michelle. Greta's been in the loop a very long time. So we're very excited to have Greta taking over as well. These are the sports that are offered in the fall. Traditionally, prior to this year, we've just offered unified tennis. This year, we are starting as a demo sport, flag football. It'll have a culminating state tournament. It won't be an official quote unquote state tournament in a demo season, but we will have that event at the end of this season. And those are the schools and districts that are participating with us in this first demo year. Otherwise, you'll see most of your other partner schools that you typically see in tennis. Forms and registration, we're not going to go super deep into this. Most of you know the deal. Additionally, your district reps go through this probably the heaviest at your preseason coaches meetings. So we're not going to go super deep, but just some reminders. Application for participation. This is that student athlete form that all student athletes have to do every year. If you have a returning student athlete, great that they did it last year. We want them to do it again, just how the policy works. Again, it's a one-pager, their info, contact info for a guardian or parent, any disability info, sign the paper, done, awesome. This is probably the most important, in our eyes and a lot of your district rep, and especially your LSS manager who does your GMS work, this is probably one of the more important forms. This is your team roster. This has nothing to do with who you're taking to states, if you advance to states, so on or so forth. This is just a roster of everyone that's training and or participating. And this allows us to get our information into GMS to then get credentials at the end of the season. It lets us know how many are participating from your district. It lets us know what the allocations are going to be for your team for states. It's a really important form. So please make sure whatever your district rep sets the due date for, get them into them, get them in early if you can. This top section here is extremely important. Any adult or student manager that's going to participate with your team that isn't playing on the court, put them in here. If it's an AD that's relatively active with your team and may come to states, put them on there. Paraprofessionals, if you have any sort of one-on-ones, put them on there. If we run into issues at states, it tends to be credentials. And if they're not on here, they don't go into our GMS system, which means they don't get a credential. And then at the last minute, You're seeing rosters, you're seeing that a name's not on there. We're adding them into GMS, we're running credentials for them when we've already run credentials. We're going to try to save that situation at the end of the season. If you guys can get everybody and anybody that is potentially an adult or a student manager working with your team on here, that would be awesome. The rest is business as usual. Again, please do your best to get their names on here, their date of birth, and their role. The date of birth is extremely important because if we don't have that, we can't get them set up in GMS, and we then have to guesstimate a birthday. We assume that they're 16 and just put it for January 1st, but that's not really good data. That doesn't allow us to assign your student athletes the right ages, so on and so forth for divisioning. This is the CDW, this is the COVID waiver. For the most part, most people have the feeling and sense that we are done with COVID. We are past that. Special Olympics International wants this filled out by everybody all the time. Never know when we get COVID 2, new COVID, whatever it's going to be. So again, the nice thing with this is it's a one and done form. So if your student athletes have already done this, if your coaches have already done this, if your paraprofessionals have already done this, it's a one and done. So again, have them do this. It doesn't hurt for student athletes if they're filling out that application or participation form to do it again, just so you double down and make sure you have it. Worse things could be done than signing a second piece of paper again. But again, if they have done it once, it's a lifetime form. It's a one and done for us. Non-student athletes, this is all of your coaches, your paraprofessionals, your student managers, blah, 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 blah. They need two really core things with us, essentially the protective behaviors training and the background check. For anyone that's a student manager, it becomes a minor reference form, but it's the two main things that you need, plus the CDW. The CDW is what's been tacked onto this. On our website, you can find all these things individually, do them individually, and email them to us, or go to Volunteer Hub, create a login. If you already have a login, just log back in, and it will prompt you to do all these things. Give up 45 minutes, sit down, knock them all out, and you're done for 3 years. That's the nice thing. The protective behaviors training, the background check / volunteer application, you're good for 3 years after that. So it's not a follow-up year after year after year. And again, the COVID form, one and done. So again, so we're not chasing paperwork at the end of the year. Go in, do it early, give that 45 minutes to make it happen. We are working on getting Excel spreadsheets to your district reps that say who has what. If you want to be proactive and just sit down and hunker down and do it in 45 minutes, even if you did it last year, you're still good for 3 years without even knowing if you have anything expired or not. That's up to you. But again, we're working on getting information to your district reps of who needs what. Some admin stuff. Very quick through this. Attendance at your district preseason coaches meeting is going to give you all of your due dates for the season, when you have to turn in paperwork, when you have your district tournament, when your assessment day is, so on and so forth. We set windows for that, but we don't dictate when your school systems have them. So you have to get that information from your district rep. The dates that we do set are the pre-competition webinar, which you can register for now, whether your team goes to states or not, and then either show up or don't if your team advances or not. And then the state tournament date. We moved it back 1 week. Typically, we like to have it in that second week of November because our community program has soccer the weekend and a half before. So last year we had Saturday, Sunday soccer in Salisbury, and then on Tuesday of that week we had state tennis, and it was a wild week for sure. So again, November 7th, JTCC, we're going back to JTCC. They're great to us. They're super supportive. And one note for US tennis coaches is if you are ever looking to get your student athletes, maybe they really like tennis and you want them involved in tennis stuff year round, or parents want them in tennis stuff year round, go to JTCC's website or reach out to JTCC because they have all sorts of adaptive tennis programming. And it's like super duper cheap and or free. And we're talking like a pretty much world-class tennis facility, probably the best in Maryland, if not the best in multiple mid-Atlantic states. So if you have students that are really interested in tennis, reach out to JTCC, go on their website. They have a lot of free offerings for our student athletes. This link here will take you to our website. The IUS tennis site has all the forms that you need, has information about the state tournament, like a fact sheet and stuff. You can go there, parents can go there, anybody can go there. It's on our main website. But if you're looking for paperwork, you can go there. Most of your district reps have them. I know Greta Harrison and Frederick has created a Google folder. A lot of district reps do that. But if for some reason you don't want to bother your district rep, you're looking for a quick copy of the application and participation form for your student athletes, go to the tennis site, scroll down, find it, click it, download it. It's all yours. Additionally, there's all sorts of other Special Olympics resources on our general coaches page on our website. This pamphlet is actually a really great resource for working with student athletes with disabilities. As somebody that before I started working with Special Olympics, I had more of a sport background than working with special needs. As I got into running events and coaching and such, I use this a lot to say, hey, I have an athlete that has Down syndrome. We're doing this sport. Why isn't this clicking? Why isn't this working? And there's some good tips and tricks in there. Additionally, on our community sports pages, most sports, including tennis, have a gigantic Special Olympics International coaches training guide for the sport. I will send out the link to that with this webinar, and it'll allow you guys to go in there. Most of them are like somewhere between 75 and 200 pages of information on the sport and coaching that sport for special needs athletes. And then the last thing I will offer as an opportunity is on our tennis website for IUS, there is a link to NFHS offers Coaching Unified Sports. Really good, about 45-minute to an hour training, not required by us at this point. Some districts do require it. But it's a really good training to learn about unified sports. And it's actually a really good training for unified partners as well. Let's talk assessments quick, because tennis assessments are always a question that we come up with, not only coaches, but district reps. So your district reps are going to give you an assessment day date in your preseason meeting. Some districts do it where everybody comes together at one spot and they do the assessments. Some do it at 3 schools on a given day that 2 or 3 teams show up to. Some do it where they have 2 or 3 days across the week where 3 or 4 teams show up, whatever it may be. Make sure you get to your assessment day, but there are things that you can do as coaches to pre-prep for the assessment day that are going to make the assessment day go extremely, extremely faster. One of the biggest things, because we do the simulated match play for red, orange, yellow, and green ball, wrong order, but if you can prep any pairs that you think might be good tandems together, prep them early so that when we're calling for pairs to get on the court to assess them, you're just sending us pairs after pairs after pairs after pairs. You're not thinking about, well, Jimmy could be good with little Sally and, but at the same time, Jimmy could be good with Steven. Try to prep that ahead of time. If we need to do some switcheroos to try some people out, absolutely fine. But if you can prep pairs ahead of the time, it makes it so much easier. One of the biggest things with tennis that we're looking at and considering for future consideration is we do the assessment days early, but student athletes get better over the course of the season, right? We assess them at a high red ball level. By the end of the season, they might be orange ball players. If you have student athletes that when they do the assessment and their scores right on the edge of red or orange or green, right on the edge of the next level up, consider bumping them up because they're going to get better over the course of the season. Your athletes and unified partners best as coaches. If you think, no, you know what, they probably need to stay in red ball, that's fine. But also just make that consideration because it could help pairings at district tournaments and the state tournament down the line. Also, skills athletes, for the most part, I think every district assesses skills athletes through skill stations. If they can forehand, backhand, serve, so on and so forth. If you have athletes that are getting moving a little bit better and their forehand's okay, their backhand's okay, they're they're shovel serving and stuff like that, consider bumping them to red ball. But again, you know your athletes when it comes to skills, high level skills athletes, low level skills athletes, whatever it may be. But prepare them for doing the skill station so they're not going in and being shell shocked, being asked to do the skill stations themselves. I'm going to pause here for any questions. Again, I didn't mention it. I'm so used to Zoom at this point. You can put them in the chat. You can open up your line and ask. Whatever works for you works for us. So I'll pause for a second for any questions. All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I'm not seeing raised hands. I'm not seeing open lines. Okay, we're rolling on. Let's talk about some coaches training, some tips, some tricks, and rules reminders. Most of this is going to be rules remindery. If you have some questions about tips and tricks, Jeff Abel does an excellent on-court training with a lot of good training tips and tricks. I've done it a couple times now, so I could share those with you. You can reach out to Jeff Abel. You can reach out to Katie Turner, who is a tennis coach herself. You can reach out to Mark Sunkel. All of us have tips and tricks. So again, if you have X athlete that's having Y problem, reach out. We can try to help you with that. So let's talk what lines are in play. I think most folks know this. It did come up as a quick question at the state tournament early. We resolved it. It was great. Red ball, it's the service box. Anything outside of the service box is out. It's, as people like to think, and Jeff Abel will probably smack me for mentioning this, it's kind of the pickleball setup. But the service box for red ball play, anything outside of it is out. That includes the alleys. Even though that's what doubles play is typically used to, the service area is it for red ball. Everything else, orange, yellow, green ball, is the full court. Alleys are in play. It's just standard, typical doubles play. For the most part, I think folks know this, but it's a good reminder, and I like this diagram. It helps me visualize and remember what lines are in play because I'm not a natural tennis player myself. Serving the ball. This comes up more often than I expect. There are 3 legal ways to serve the ball. 1, the traditional overhand, throw it up, arm comes over, serve the ball. 2nd, served underhand, hold the ball out in front of you, swing the racket up, release the ball, serve it. The 3rd one, which some people don't realize, we try to push it at coaches trainings to remind them and we teach them, is if you have athletes that struggle with the first 2, they can place the tennis ball on the strings of the racket and shovel the ball over. With that said, they can't put the ball in the throat of the racket and shovel it over. That kind of takes the skill out of serving altogether, right? Additionally, a note, if you have athletes that are lifting or shoveling the ball over, they're likely red ball athletes. If you have somebody that is playing orange ball and is shoveling it over, you should probably really be pushing them to start underhand serving and working towards that overhand serve. Not because it's not allowed. You can shovel the ball in any level. It's just really, really hard to get the ball shoveled from the service line all the way over the net. So just something to consider. The last thing when it comes to serving the ball, you cannot bounce serve it in any way, shape, or form. I don't recommend, if you have athletes getting going, to start there. If you have somebody that needs to start there and you are confident you can get them out of that groove without them forming a bad habit, that's your call as a coach. But you cannot legally bounce serve anything at any competitions. Scoring slide. The scoring, I always have to revisit and reread. I pretty much reread it before every tournament I go to, especially for the tiebreaker. I'm going to try to simplify this text as much as possible, but reading it and thinking through it, for the most part, you can get what they're trying to say if you are not a tennis person. Again, I'm not a tennis person, so occasionally I struggle with this as well too. It's 2 out of 3 sets. So whoever gets the 2 out of 3 wins the whole match. We play 4 games within a set, and you have to win by 2. So traditionally, sets are 1-4-0, 4-1, 4-2. If a set gets to 4-3, which is this next part, and the team that has 4 goes to 5, they win. They win by 2. That match is over, or that set is over. If for some reason they are at 4-3 and it goes to 4-4, we move to a 7-point tiebreaker, which is played. And that's just back and forth tiebreaker play, nothing unique about that. When it comes to the 7 points, though, they have to win by 2. So it's typically 7-5, 7-4, 7-3, whatever it is, they have to win by at least 2 in that 7-point tiebreaker. In the scenario where you've gotten through 2 sets and it's 1-1, and we're running out of time for that match or whatever it may be, we will go to that 10-point tiebreaker. The 10-point tiebreaker is the same thing as the 7-point tiebreaker. You have to win by 2. It's just 10 points. It gives you a little bit more gameplay to determine, because you're determining a full set. If anybody has questions on that, feel free to reach out. I can try to clarify a little bit better. But I've practiced that breakdown as much as I can to try to simplify it for you. The one thing that we are going to get better at is this last bullet point, building in and making sure after that second set, if we're playing a third set, there's a 3-minute rest. Again, get water, take a break, sit down. Likely not enough time for a bathroom break, but if needed, we can make it happen. But again, if you have questions on scoring and how the game, sets, matches, situation plays out, reach out, let us know. Coaching while they're on the court. Players can be coached when they change ends during a match. So essentially, after a set, when they change ends, they can be coached. So in between full sets. Only credentialed coaches at the state tournament, at least, can be coaching between sets. If and when there is a tiebreak, there's no coaching because they're playing those points straight out. There's no changing. I mean, they do change sides, but to keep things moving in a tiebreaker, there's no coaching. And if you want to look at that, that is in the rules under coaching. Line calls and lets. This is probably the toughest part for people that are playing unified tennis or tennis that are non-traditional tennis players. I struggle with line calls myself. I've gotten better over the years being around tennis more. Line calls are really hard to do if you're not used to it. The main rule is the top bullet point. If any part of the ball is touching the line, it's in. Again, for red ball, if it touches any of the service area lines, it's in. For orange, green, yellow ball, if it touches any of the lines, even in the alley, it's in. So start there when you're coaching your players to make line calls, right? We want our unified partners, we want our athletes learning to make line calls. It's part of the game of tennis. But with the second bullet point, we typically have officials on every court, or somebody there that is going to make official line calls. But if your students can learn to start doing it, it's a courteous and good thing for them to learn how to do, just so everybody knows where the game stands and where that point stands. If for some reason you are in a match play and there are multiple calls or disputes that your student athletes or you think are wrong, ask the official. Ask the official if it still seems wrong or something doesn't seem right. Ask for the head official to come over for the state tournament, or for Katie as the sports chair, Mark as one of the sports chairs, myself as the tournament director. Have us come over, talk it out, figure it out, and if we need to, put extra eyes on the court to help you guys out. There's a link at the bottom here. It is a very good video, very simple video on making line calls. If you want to review it, I think it's a good and valuable video to watch. Might not even be a bad video to share with your unified partners and athletes or show at some point. But But again, learning line calls is one of the biggest things for our student athletes to master, and it's not easy. We totally get it. If you need tennis drills or ideas for training, email us. Like I said, Jeff Abel does an excellent on-court training. Most, if not all of you, will go through it pre-season with your district coaches meetings and stuff. But if you still have questions, if you have an athlete, again, ex-athlete struggling to learn Y skill or facilitate Y skill, email us. Email me, Katie, Mark, Jeff, whomever it is, just reach out. We'll do our best to help you out. We'll send you resources, whatever we got. Again, I'm going to pause for questions. Don't see anything in the chat. I don't see any hands. All right, we're going to keep rolling. Protest procedures. This is something that came up at the end of the season last year, and we want to clarify what our protest procedures are, so you are well equipped as coaches to support and protect your student athletes. That's what protests are for. What is a protest? Short answer is it's a written documented process which a head coach, specifically head coaches, can file to voice a concern for reviewing something that happened during competition that may have hurt the student athlete experience. We want you to protect your athletes. That's what protests are for. Some examples of protestable situations: a rules error by an official. Again, say we're playing red ball and they're calling the alley next to the service area out. That's protestable. A misrecording of the score, that is protestable. Pretty rare. I don't think I've ever seen one of those in like 10 years of doing this. Maximum effort rule, which doesn't apply to tennis, but applies to sports like track and field and strength and conditioning. And then coaching out of a designated area. Again, we assign areas for coaches. If a coach for tennis is coaching instead of between sets or coaching during matches and stuff like that, it's protestable. The main points for filing a protest that you need to know. Step one is you need to file it at our control center by the head coach within 15 minutes of the results being posted or the match ending. If you have something that you want to protest from a match at the end of a match, we always have coaches sign the score sheet, whether it's tennis or bocce or whatever it is. Do not, I repeat, do not sign the score sheet. Signing the score sheet means you approve the conclusion of that match, you approve the score, blah, 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 blah. If for some reason you have something to protest and you don't sign the score sheet, and the official's like, you got to sign the score sheet, just bring the official with you to the control center. That's absolutely fine. If not, find Katie, find myself, find Mark Sunkel, find a Special Olympics staff member, and we'll take care of that. Again, most of our officials they have volunteers from organizations like JTCC and Chestertown Bocce Club, blah, blah, blah. They are very good at officiating the sport. They don't necessarily know every one of our procedures for Special Olympics. They're damn volunteers. Again, do not sign the match sheet if you have something you would like to protest, and come to the control center as the head coach. Don't send parents, don't send a assistant coach, don't send a unified partner, don't send an athlete. Head coaches can file protests. The second line is only head coaches can file protests. It's how it is, it's how it always will be, because then that prevents the Pandora's box of anyone and everybody that's watching. Grandma came to watch and she thought there was, a misplay somewhere, and she's coming to try to file a protest. That's just going to back things up at the control center. Head coaches, though, come to the control center, don't sign the score sheet, file a protest. Issues that will be automatically denied if a protest is filed is an official's judgment call. If officials are the ones calling lines and they say it was in and you think it was out and you want to file a protest, we'll let you file it, but it's going to be instantly denied. We support our officials, we back our officials, we train our officials. And just like any other sport, we don't have instant replay. We don't have the people back in New York looking at the video screens to let us know if the ball was in or out. But we trust our officials' understanding of the game. We trust that we train them, so on and so forth. So if it's an official's judgment call, that's not something that's technically protestable. It'll be denied. Divisioning is another thing that you think they were division wrong. While that's not protestable, you can always come and talk to us. Not saying there's anything that we can or cannot do. But there have been things and situations in the past where, for skills play or track and field, more individual parts of our sports, that we may split a division or do something like that. Sometimes that's something that is applicable. But again, division is not something that you can protest, but come talk to us if you have a concern about that. Again, you must complete the form. It's an NCR form. You get a copy, I get a copy, everybody gets a copy. If a protest is denied, you can then file an appeal of why you think that it should be re-reviewed and considered for appeal. Again, the head of delegation / head coach can file that appeal, and then the games rule committee, which is it's usually me and like an official and a district rep or something like that. We'll get on a phone call within 24 hours. Worst case scenario, sometimes it's 48 hours after a state tournament or something because we're busy / tired. And we will do a re-review for potential appeal, or it may be denied again, just to let you know. Any questions on protests? I don't see anything. It's a lot of information. I get that it's a lot to take in. If at any point you have questions about protests, text me, call me, email me. You guys have my contact info. Reach out to your district reps. They're pretty well versed in that. Specifically protest stuff, it can be difficult. So I don't mind if you reach out to me via email or phone call or whatever it may be. Again, if you see me at a assessment day, a practice, a district tournament, grab me, say, hey, can you explain the protest stuff? I don't understand this part or any of it or whatever. More than happy to talk through and explain this stuff to the best of my ability to you guys. COMAR regulations. My line for COMAR regulations is the same as I always give the district reps and anybody else. We don't technically enforce COMAR. That's MPSSAA and the associated school districts. Your supervisors of athletics, athletic directors, they enforce COMAR. If you think there's a COMAR violation, somebody participating that shouldn't have, or you come across something or whatever, talk to your district rep. They'll talk to their athletic directors, and it'll get resolved within your district or with the other district if there is an issue. Special Olympics does not regulate it. We follow COMAR. We remind you guys of COMAR, and we do our best to keep an eye out for anything that could be a COMAR violation, but it's not a rules and regulation that we enforce because we don't have the grounds to enforce it, quite honestly. But again, just remember what it is. Talk to your district rep. Everybody does a little different. I've started hearing that there are waivers out there now for student athletes to be dual sport athletes in a given season, not just in a school year. So again, that's a question for your district rep and your athletic director. Uniforms. I think for the most part, everyone knows the deal on uniforms, but we have gone a few years since I've taken over IUS, and we've been relatively lax on the uniform rule. We're not doing it anymore because it's not fair to the schools and the student athletes that follow the uniform code. We set a uniform code. We want your student athletes to follow it. As coaches, it's your job as the first line to enforce it and make sure they have what they need. If for some reason somebody doesn't have what they need, talk to your athletic director. If for some reason it can't be worked out there, talk to us. If there's a special situation of you can't get a uniform and a size for an athlete that you need, or whatever it may be, talk to us. We're not becoming uniform police. That's not what we're here to do. It's not the business we're in, but we are going to be more strict and DQing individual participants and or parts or whole teams for uniform violations from here on out. because if schools are doing it right and other schools aren't, that's not fair to the schools that are doing it right. Again, uniform specs for the shirt, team name, school mascot, whatever you want on it, as long as it has that Special Olympics pill on the chest, the sleeve, or the back of the neck, we're happy with your uniform. Uniform tops. They need to be some sort of matching tops across the board for your team. Needs to have that unified sports logo and your team/school name. Other than that, it can have your mascot or whatever you want on it. They can be t-shirts, they can be made of cotton or Under Armour or whatever. They could be polos, they don't have to be polos. They could be long sleeve shirts. Whatever you decide is your school uniform for your team, that is fine, as long as they have the team/school name, the unified sports logo, we're good. And everybody has the same top across the board. The bottoms is where we tend to run into the most violations of uniforms. You need to have a single colored bottom that are shorts, athletic pants, khakis for tennis, dress shorts, whatever you determine it to be. They can be sweatpants. That's fine. They need to be of one color. They don't need to be the exact same black shorts from one store. They can be black shorts with nothing on them from Walmart and Old Navy and whatever. They just need to be the same type of short, same color, whatever you choose to pick. Additionally, it can't have any sort of big logos on it. It can't have a big Under Armour logo on the side of it. It can't have the Maryland flag design on it. If you guys have team shorts that are issued by the school with your mascot on it and it's a good size, let me know. Send me a picture or something that I'm less worried about, but it's more brand logos and stuff like that. The other thing is no leggings. Nobody should be wearing leggings. I know leggings are comfortable for athletic participation. It's not what we're looking for. No leggings. The other thing, and I didn't write it on here because it should be unbelievably obvious, but we've run into it a couple times. No jeans, like at all. If they're technically khaki colored jeans and you have determined for your indoor bocce team during the winter that everybody is wearing khakis and they are khaki colored jeans, that is the one example of jeans that we will agree with and understand, because most of my khakis are khaki colored jeans. I get it. If you show up in blue jeans to any IUS sport, that student athlete's going to get DQ'd. So that's just how it is. I can't believe I have to mention jeans year after year. No jeans. Again, if you have somebody that has a good reason that they can't match the exact uniform, let me know. I'm pretty sure there's an example in Western Maryland of someone that has to wear certain clothes for religious reasons or whatever. That's fine. Again, communicate with me. But for the most part, the whole rest of the team is all wearing the uniform. So what happens if you're not wearing the right uniform? Essentially, if you have a student athlete that's not up the code, they're not going to be eligible to play. For tennis, that could have a meaning of you have somebody show up that's part of a doubles team that's not eligible to play because they wore jeans. That team isn't eligible to play for competition, or they'll be exhibition only, but it hurts both of the individuals there. We are also not going to let you show up, especially to the state tournament, and have somebody out of uniform. They get the doubles team disqualified, and then you just swap somebody in. We can't be swapping people in on site. So there is a chance that for some reason, if half your team shows up out of uniforms and leggings and jeans, your whole team could end up getting disqualified. So again, as a coach, set the uniform, be the first line of defense of making sure people are in the right uniform. And if you need to go to the extreme of having extra pairs of whatever shorts you are requiring or your uniform top you are requiring with you, might be worth the investment. For community program, we have a bowling team that makes sure one of the coaches comes with a Tupperware bin full of every size of khaki pants you can find on the face of the earth. That's what you got to do to make sure your team shows up right. Do what you got to do. If you need uniforms or equipment, We put this in the district rep webinar. Step 1, talk to your athletic director or supervisor of athletics. You know, sometimes people are in a loop, or every 3 years you get new uniforms, 5 years, whatever it may be, talk to them first. If for some reason you are in dire need of uniforms and it's not your year for uniforms or whatever it may be, reach out to your district rep. They'll reach out to us and we'll have a chit chat. We'll see what we can do. Again, if you need equipment, same thing, talk to your athletic director. If you can't get it from them, reach out to your district rep. They'll reach out to us, see what we can do. Uniform questions. Still not seeing any chat stuff, not seeing any raised hands or open lines. Again, you guys are 99.9% of the time, uniforms are fine and great. The 1% of the times where somebody shows up in jeans that we run into the issue, we will be DQing them for sure from now on out. Coaches Q&A. Questions. Any sort of questions, again, you can always email, you can call, type, text, you know, send a Raven with a little letter attached to it, whatever works for you. Just communicate with us. Okay, I don't see questions. Again, if something pops up, it's tough on these, right? You never know if you're going to have something that sparks a question or not. Sometimes you're just soaking in information. If you have a question in the next week, 2 weeks, month, 3 years, whatever, again, text, call, email, whatever works for you. Ask your district rep, talk to your athletic directors. There's enough lines of support that we can figure it out for you. With that said, we're at the end here. Appreciate everything that you guys did last year for returning coaches. Appreciate everything that you guys are going to do as coaches this year, new and returning coaches. Appreciate everything you guys are doing as school teachers and gym teachers and everything else. We recognize that school is always interesting every year, and that you are pulling double duty as coaches essentially. And we appreciate everything you do. If there's anything we can do for you, reach out to us, ask your district rep. We want to support you. We want to make sure your student athletes have a good experience. We will do our best to figure out whatever we need to do to get them that good experience within our power. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if there's anything that you need when I send out this email with this slide deck and the recording in it, just reach out. Again, text, email, call me, whatever you need. All right, guys, have a great night.